The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say on an open line Mannin Line today. Call 66 13 68. Text 166 177. WhatsApp 166 177. Have to stick an 07624 in front of that. And you can email studio at manxradio.com. Baz says, Andy, I'm beginning to think the government's encouraging instability at the airport to drive business towards the new facilities of the extra boat at Liverpool and the new terminal. Well, it's not going to be open for a while. However, it won't be long before some airlines just lose interest and give up on the Isle of Man route. It'll be interesting to have a reaction. Is the government doing this? Well, if you think the government could organise that, I wonder. But the problems continue. The delays, the cancellations continue at Ronaldsway. And it's easy to look back with rose-tinted glasses, but was it ever as bad as this? Did we ever get to a situation where we were almost getting used to people being delayed or not coming? I was looking forward to a long-awaited visit from a member of my family yesterday, says this text. Unfortunately, the early flight couldn't take off due to fog on the island. Not having the necessary technical skills to rebook by mobile apps, by the time he'd backtracked to the airline desk, he was unable to get another seat till the following evening, a day and a half later, and told that the flight would be subject to cancellation too. So this precious annual visit is now cancelled. Fog's something no one can predict or do anything about. However, airlines strive to maintain their intricate systems of operation and can't have loyalty when it comes to serving inadequate airports. Inadequate airports, wow. The present government certainly has its challenges in a changing world, but their handling of them and forward-thinking seems seriously lacking in too many areas. We seem to be in an age when a guaranteed cushion of pensions can create a sense of entitlement, and what elsewhere is being termed golden incompetence. Thanks for that text. Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Just something for the melting pot. We've had a lot of talk about energy set to green energy. Well, in the Daily Mail this morning, page 12, we've all heard of the Eden project down the south of England, and Cornwall. They have just opened up yesterday. A deep geothermal energy plant was opened at the Eden project in Cornwall yesterday. The first to launch in the UK in almost 40 years. And they're hoping to get enough heat out of that to cover all their uses and more. It's gone 3 miles down into the granite and will make use of the heat trapped underground to use at the visitor attraction. But the last geothermal plant was completed, again in the south of England, in 1986 in Southampton, but is currently closed for repairs. And the man here, the co-founder of Cornwall's Eden project, said, the geothermal is a sleeping giant of renewables, lying not under our noses, but literally under our feet. So it's feasible, it's possible, and with a little bit of common sense, highly probable. So why is the Isle of Man government ignoring it?
Well, they seem to just turn their back on the situation. They obviously have to take advice from experts, but you would think that they would be exploring every opportunity.
Well, you would under normal practice, but it depends how they are being biased and what they're being fed information on. Is it primarily through the solar panels? Is it through electric vehicles? Is it through wind farms, etc.? Are they being led by the nose by these companies? and then going to ignore what we have, a natural source, again, I emphasise that word, natural source of energy that the Earth is providing. And it's one of these things. The Isle of Man has a lot of granite on it in various places all round, and this is a feasible, I'm talking as a layman, but it sounds feasible and highly probable if they would let it process into a train of thought where they're going to say, yes, let's study it and let's have a look at it.
You just wonder that if there's a possibility that this might work, surely it's worth a punt. I mean, if it costs $1 million, if it costs $2 million, surely everybody will understand. If it comes back negative, we'll all say, well, we had a go, and it cost that much money. But we find money for other things.
Oh, yes. Well, they're prepared to spend X number of millions on various other green items, and they're looking for wind farms on the island, whereas you can have just a small area that's dedicated geothermal, and it become inconspicuous, whereas wind turbines, etc., all over the place, it looks like Disneyland. And, it's sometimes like them, and others they put them up, and you've got to put them in exposed areas to be of any use. So it's going to detract. So if you've got geothermal, and as I say, the infrastructure, I've said it before, the infrastructure for the electricity supply is here on the island, and being an island and a population that's diverse as it is, it'd be a good experiment. It'd be a good area. It's like saying, let's have an area in the UK where we can have X number of square miles, and let's see what we can do about geothermal and see how we can supply there. And let the government turn around and say, let's have a word with a company who's going to make the effort to do geothermal. Chinese are doing it. They're doing it all over the world. The Chinese are going to go down to 40,000 feet.
Okay, all right, Howard, we'll look at that.
That'll give a train of thought, and let's hope the people who have been pushing for geothermal, the knowledgeable people who have been pushing for this, will come back on again and put their train of thought. All right,
thanks for that, Howard.
Take care. Bye now.
It's 14 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio. This is the story that the Eden Project, Eden Geothermal Limited, was set up by three partners, Eden Project, EGS Energy and Bestech UK, to unlock geothermal energy deep in the granite beneath Cornwall. Now, it's not cheap. Now, the funding for this whole project was the best part of, it's over £20 million. They got 15.7 from the European Regional Development Fund, 1.4 million from Cornwall Council, and 6.5 million from the private sector to drill 4.5 kilometres down at the Eden Project to heat the biomes and the greenhouses and the offices. And now it's started. It's not exactly widespread in Britain, the one in Southampton, there's this one in Cornwall now. And you just have to wonder why. Well, just look at this. When this is running, it really doesn't cost much to run. So is this the sort of thing that a big company is going to be interested in? And really the energy, it's not really a pollutant. It doesn't make a big mess around the place. It's not like having 20 windmills. So why do you think that there's no kind of rush for geothermal? Is it just because it's a bit too simple and it's a bit too cheap for big business? Obviously, in the green world, in the net zero world, big business is looking to make a return on their investment, particularly former fossil fuel companies who want to transition to getting into getting into net zero projects. They run big organizations and they need a lot of capital. So is it just a little bit too little for them? We don't know, but as yet the government doesn't seem that they want to even look at geothermal on the island. Tony's on now. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Good, thanks. Well, it's a beautiful day. That's a good start.
Yeah, that's a good start. Well, that means, I guess, that it's also, there's no wind. So I guess there'll be no turbines turning today.
Not today.
No, not today, but the Eden project will be working. I think there's a problem in the government. I think there's a problem in the whole of the administration of the island. A man came on some weeks ago, I think, and said, well, we don't want to do anything because we want to wait for somebody else to do it for us. That's because they have no idea what they're doing in departments. They have no expert on geothermal, and they're not willing to talk to anybody who's an expert, because we'd have to get somebody in from across, where in actual fact you've got loads of experts who live in the Isle of Man, but they are not part of the government. Our Chief Minister and his ministers in cohort seem more interested in pushing for fluoridation in the water and spending 200 million on an interconnector rather than spending 20 or 30 million to drill a well. So the maths is just ridiculous. Why are we putting an interconnector in when we could actually be generating that electricity with a very small investment compared to the other money they throw around? It's just ludicrous. And, we'll put some fluoride in the water because we don't need it, but it might solve a problem called dentists, because they didn't have a dentist's agreement that forced all the dentists on the island to do children's teeth free of charge. So once again, we take a massive sledgehammer to crack a tiny nut to get the wrong answer. I'm getting to the point where it's not worth it phoning up, because I'm sure they don't listen. They're not interested. They have their agenda and they're going to follow it. I don't know what you think about it.
Well, I can guarantee you that they do listen. Now, how much notice they take is another matter. And I think we'll be charitable and say that they do take notice. They hear what people say. It just depends what the direction of travel is. And as you say, it's which experts they listen to. And obviously, at some point, public money, Manx money, is going to have to be put into something. And, there's less and less Manx money by the day.
Yeah, because they keep spending it on the wrong things. Net zero. Stop talking about net zero and start talking about energy sources that cost you X amount and then basically don't have to be paid for anymore, as opposed to everything else that needs maintenance. The amount of maintenance on a circulating water system for geothermal is minute compared to the maintenance for windmills, etc., etc. And they are intermittent, whereas geothermal is not. People have been using geothermal around the world for years. It's not new. It's something that's used often, all the time. Iceland has got dozens of geothermal wells. And they drive steam turbines coming out the ground. They don't have to have interchanges because their rock is so hot. They could go on the internet and in 10 minutes they'll find out a lot about geothermal they don't know. But they don't seem to be interested in that. They seem to be interested in taking things like putting fluoride in the water, which is toxic, it's poison, but it's good for children with bad teeth because they don't brush their teeth. That's not the solution. The solution is to get the children to brush their teeth by teaching them that in school.
It's interesting that they're trying to, the net zero trajectory is trying to make adults change the way that they live their life. It's trying to make, we're going to live a different life in the future because of the way that net zero is going. So why aren't they trying to make children change the way they live their life and brush their teeth?
Because it's easier to impose something than it is to try and train somebody to do something. That's the way that the governments go nowadays. They impose it and tell you we have to do this because we're all going to die otherwise and the world is going to end. It's a crisis.
Do you get do you get a clear picture from government of what it is they're actually trying to agree on? And what do we have to do?
Absolutely not, because they don't tell us what they discuss. I think that in the openness that we were promised for government, we should be able to hear everything they discuss, and it should be recorded, and every piece of advice they got should have been recorded by all the people who are so-called experts, which end up with disastrous plans in the departments. And I remember somebody came on and said, "Oh, you can't do that because then they would be to blame and they can't give good advice." No, they can give bad advice and not be held to account for it. And the government just nods it through. MHKs nod it through on the basis that somebody told me it was a good idea. I despair. Why don't they tell us what goes on at the Council of Ministers? Which was the brilliant person that decided to put fluoride in the water to stop children getting bad teeth? I mean, we don't know that, do we? Because it's secret. Everything at the Council of Ministers is secret, like a lot of other things in government. It's secret. And that's not open government at all. Not in my opinion.
This whole question about transparency, and people fling that word transparency around like it's a cricket ball. But how far would you want transparency to go, Tony?
I'd want it to go to honesty and openness, so that if we don't know the answer, we ask people, and who we ask is important. I mean, to go to KPMG, who's a questionable auditor, and get advice about how to change your economy is not the best thing to be doing. I mean, I think they make some decisions which are absolutely ludicrous. There are people in the Isle of Man who are more than competent than people in KPMG. So why aren't they asking the people who are experts in the Isle of Man?
Okay. All right, Tony, I appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
You be good, Andy. Take care.
Good.
Enjoy the weather.
All right, good to hear from you. Juan's on now. Hi, Juan.
How are you today, Andy?
Oh, I'm very happy because it's a lovely day.
It's an absolutely gorgeous day, isn't it? I must say, yesterday's show, 538 viewers that were watching in on yesterday's show, and I must say, I was very impressed yesterday with only one thing: your suntan. Amazing. It looked really good. There had to be something positive out of the programme, didn't there? I was down in Peel last night, and I must say a shout out to the RNLI. I watched them pulling in a yacht that had sunk last night, and they rescued the people and then pulled the yacht in over the bay. And what a fantastic service from volunteers! Absolutely brilliant. Going on to the main topic, there's so much this week: fluoridation, digital currency questionnaire, Charles Godd's view of the island. But I'm going to choose at the moment the Manx Radio news bulletin of Julie Edge has announced the sex education bill is going to be brought back in.
Yes.
Okay. So, staying down in Peel, we might as well stay down in Peel for this. It would be nice. Obviously, the AG's office and the press office has let her loose to announce this. But I'd like to drill into it a little bit more. And I would love Julie Edge and Graham Kinraid to come on the radio and actually talk about this, because that's one thing she doesn't seem to be talking about. I've spoke to some of the parents, and at the moment they're still waiting for questions to be asked and them to be talked to by this so-called investigation. So what's going on there? We've got parents who don't know anything about what's going on. Stage 2 of the investigation is way behind. A Freedom of Information Act for the curriculum has been denied. What's this all about? Government seem to be taking over the running of the children, and the parents are way down the list here. There's a lot of parents are concerned about what's getting taught.
Well, they said that the next stage of the inquiry is going to be published before the end of this school term.
Why is it taking that long? I mean, the basis of this is they are following the Scottish curriculum. They are wanting to introduce something. And again, back to tailor-made stuff for the Isle of Man. They're trying to follow something from England. Now, this is, I think, and a lot of parents are thinking, this is sexualisation of young children at 11 years old. I'm going to go on to something that was in the Daily Mail, that's Daily Mail Online. 12-year-olds taught anal sex. Children taught or told to masturbate for homework. What is going on? This has no place on the island. If this is what they're wanting to bring here, this has no place. So on Julie Edge's talk of well-being of the children, that we're introducing this again, I'd like to question that, of the well-being of the children. And if it is the well-being, then why will they not release the curriculum to the parents? It's a simple question. And if they're hiding it, why are they hiding it? Why have they not spoken to the parents? Why has she had an informal meeting with the transgender group in a hotel in Douglas and not spoke to the parents?
Well, we'll just keep on asking the question from Julie Edge. Actually, just hang on there for a moment, Ewan. This is Julie Edge said this phase 2 is understood to be completed, which looked at the broader curriculum and teaching methods. This is what Julie Edge had to say.
It's good to talk. It's how we get things done. So when you apply for a personal loan from Black Horse, you'll get support from one of our relationship managers who's there to talk you through your application. You could borrow up to £50,000 with up to 7 years to pay it back, and you could receive your money within 24 hours of approval. Ready to talk? Go to blackhorseoffshore.co.uk to request a call back today. Finance subject to status. Applicants must be 18 or over.
Here she is, the Education Minister.
It was available to everybody that was interested in speaking to the investigator to provide any personal experiences that they've had around it or with regards to parental concerns.
And the sex education curriculum in its current state is suspended. Is the start of a new academic year the first time we could see a sex education curriculum reintroduced?
Certainly it will be in place for September. It is a very important part of children's education and well-being to be able to understand what the choices are they make in life, and it's a key part for our schools to deliver this to our young people so that they're getting that good rounded education in many areas, and obviously the PSHE curriculum, which RSE is part of as well. It's an important part, and I think I've had many positive messages about when will we be reintroducing it, because parents have got concerns that their children will not be aware of some of the concerns, and we are seeing this as different generations. There's differences, and we have to adapt to that and make sure we're delivering the right programme to our young people.
What do you think about that, Ewan?
Good rounded education. Well, let's drop into that a little bit, because no one seems to be talking to the parents, and I have. So let's just drop into that a little bit. This was a 3-part thing where the kids were put into 3 different parts of this. Part 1 was teaching kids, I believe, this is what I've been told, how to take skin grafts from an arm to make a penis for sex change. Stage 2 was with the drag artist, and this is where the child got taken out because he was said to be cheeky and said that there's only 2 genders when the drag artist seemingly said there's 72. And the third part is the sex education, which is primarily all the other stuff and other stuff which I don't think I'm going to mention at dinner time. But people should be aware of what's going on now. I believe that something's happened at Castle Rushen High School as well. I'm trying to find out about that. So I won't speak about that at the moment. But it concerns me that government are trying to... They went radio silent with this. And it's very concerning that this is happening with kids. They shouldn't be sexualised at this age. It's wrong to be sexualised at this age. And like I've said before, acceptance is absolutely fantastic. Acceptance for people is brilliant. LGBT, brilliant, but not promotion. And there's a very, very fine difference here between acceptance and promotion. So before anyone comes start slagging me off like Bonzo and all this, I totally agree with acceptance, but promotion is a totally different thing. I spoke to someone the other week who had an operation in the new Victoria Hospital in London, a very expensive hospital, now taking in less patients. You know why, Andy? Because they're making more money out of sex changes.
So do you sympathise at all with Julie Edge's position?
I do, but you know what? And I've said this before. Stop signing off legislation that you haven't read or don't understand or don't agree with. All this, and this boils back to everything like Julian talking about ESGs and DEIs and CEIs, all this stuff. And a lot of people out there are going to go, what's an ESG and what's a CEI and what's a DEI? They don't want you to understand all this credit scoring that they've got to achieve. And I could keep saying it's the same with the geothermal I've been on about, which Howard was on about before, about farming. They're doing agendas which is not suitable for this island, and it's the same with the sex education. We don't have to follow these agendas. And what they're doing at the moment is following the masses, but they're following the masses with a silent M.
Okay. All right. We'll wait and see what happens, but certainly something's got to happen. And the one thing is sure, June, it's going to be very visible, whatever happens. So nothing will happen that we can't see.
Well, let the CEO, let Graham Kinraid and Julie Edge come on the show and talk to the people and answer the questions, because there's too much radio silence. And these are our kids for the future. So it is important. I agree with what she says. But well-rounded and well-being, with what I've heard, don't know about that.
All right, June, I appreciate that. It's 27 minutes before 1. The Education, Sport and Culture Minister, Julie Edge, says the findings of the next stage of the inquiry into the sex education curriculum will be published before the end of this school term.
Spectrum Windows. If your house needs a new look and your windows let in rain, keep those cold breezes out and make it look like new again. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Quality through and through. Great work guaranteed to you. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Spectrum Windows. I love to drive.
Drive smarter. Drive more reliable. Drive a great deal at Mannin Motors, with a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
It's the Manx Telecom Parish Walk this Saturday. Whether you're walking, watching or driving, remember the roads will be extra busy, so take extra care. For details of road closures and to follow your friends and family, visit parishwalk.com.
On Manx Radio and Radio Caroline. Radio Caroline North.
Caroline North is live this weekend from the Ross Revenge with the greatest music from the 60s, 70s, 80s and just into the 90s. We got virtual money to give away to spend in the Caroline web shop, and the whole weekend is sponsored by Turton Tower Woodland Cafe. Join us live from the Ross Revenge online on your smart speaker on 648 1368 and DAB on the Isle of Man.
The Mannin Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio from midday till 1, Monday to Friday.
25 to 1. A note in from Trina, who said, well, she sent this yesterday actually, but we were talking about enterprise, so it didn't go in, and just said, is it illegal for people to feed the gulls? She said, I'm sick and tired of walking down Douglas Prom on the walkway and seeing people eating food as they go. Well, you can't stop that, but also feeding gulls and throwing the food where there are other people walking around. Surely it's illegal to feed gulls and we shouldn't be doing it. So I just wonder what everybody else thoughts about this. Feeding the gulls. Is it something that should happen? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And let's see, we got Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Yeah, I agree with every word that Julian said. And I've got some knowledge of what the RSE curriculum is. I think perhaps it should be trimmed back to the old style birds and the bees, and then the time saved can go to good dental practice for the kids, and then we don't have to fluoridate the water.
I got a note in from a lady who just actually emailed in there and just said, Julian, but I mean, anything that children want to know about sex is available on the internet, and they've all got smartphones. So do we accept that children know more about sex now than we used to know, or people in past generations? What do we do? Where do you think government, and is it for government to draw the line?
Well, let's say I'll just make this very short, but the LGB part of the LGBT community are not quite so happy about what's going on with everything with this at the moment. I'll just leave it at that. So LGB, we know what those three are. They're not on board with a lot of this stuff.
Okay, and what else were you calling for?
Yeah, I totally agree with Howard and Tony B. Also, don't forget that with the minimal amount of geothermal maintenance on the Eden project, it's more or less halving their £1 million a year bill as well for their heating for the geodesic domes. So, and that's at the current preliminary flow rates. And I'm pretty sure that they can up the flow rate and get more hot water from that. Tony B mentioned about net zero, and it kind of gave me an idea about something that I noticed recently, that a couple of the MHKs have mentioned that the Laxey floods in December 2015 and 2019 are being invoked as evidence of man-made climate change, and hence onto the net zero goals that we're hearing about.
I thought that was just a tree stuck in the river.
Well, after hearing about Howard Kane's excellent old news programme that he did the other day on heat waves, it gave me a bit of an idea. And from memory, the 2015 flood was made far worse because the bus fell into the river after the old bridge collapsed, and the bus caused a damming effect that caused the river to rise as a result. And then in 2019, in the October, the river defence wall had been breached prior to the flood by a digger to allow access to the weir to remove tree debris.
I remember they were arguing about who was responsible for putting the digger in, weren't they?
And at the time, Garth commissioners said that failure to clear tree branches months earlier contributed to the severity of the flood. And then the digger itself became a contributory factor because it fell over and became trapped, and on the side that it sort of diverted the water towards the hole that was in the defence wall.
Yeah.
So it just gave me an idea to have a little look back in history. And I've just cherry picked just a handful of these, so I'll just whittle them off as quick as I can. Mona's Herald newspaper reported February 14th, 1837, so that's 13 years before the Industrial Revolution, CO2 levels were 53%, less than half them now. The report was, serious damage sustained to Laxey Mine in consequence of the river bursting its banks. November 3rd, 1860, Manx Sun reported on the discovery of the old pier at Laxey. The late heavy rains have caused such a flood in the Laxey River that the site of the old harbour and pier has been unexpectedly discovered. Upwards of 100 yards in length and 20 feet in height have been discovered. In 1872, the Manx Sun reported a blow for Laxey Mine as a flood has destroyed the dam head. October 13, 1883, Manx Sun, flooding in Laxey, schoolmaster Mr. J.J. Cooley's residence severely damaged. A month later, December 29, 1883, Isle of Man Advertiser reported both the higher and the lower Laxey bridges severely damaged by flooding. 8th November 1890, Isle of Man Times, a storm of great severity swept over the island. A flat belonging to Laxey Harbour was swept out to sea.
Okay, so what's the implication?
The implication, from what I can see, is I've got a list you wouldn't believe, and I'll stop because I could go on for another hour, and I know I know your listeners won't want me to do that. They seem to be much more severe and much more frequent than what we've become used to. So is that a reduction? I mean, the exacerbating effects of the 2015 flood that everyone's talking about, we must take this as man-made warming. The bus was blocking the river due to the old bridge collapsing. And the 2019 one, there was a hole in the wall on Glen Road, and then all the houses flooded. I mean, even, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it wasn't just the flood. There was human intervention in this at some point or other that made it far worse. So
interesting. I've just got a note in from Alan, who just sent a message in to say, agree with what Julian's saying. It's like when they say that there are wildfires on the Isle of Man because of global warming. Well, it's because some idiots left a portable barbecue there.
or the Bradder fire, which I believe was caused by somebody throwing some petrol onto some weeds and stuff that they'd gone over the wall and went right across Bradder all the way down to Fleshwick.
Or the one that happened last week, that was because somebody was doing a burn-off.
Yeah, but there's no fire breaks done these days, so there was nothing to stop it running all the way over the top of Bradder Hill and all the way down to Fleshwick. So, it's a bit like you see in some places in the States now where they've introduced, saving a type of reptile or something, which means that they don't get rid of the brushwood that's underneath that they would normally in the past have cleared to make sure that you don't have wildfires. So all these things are kind of human contributory to this.
Okay. All right, Julian, thanks for the call in today.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
Good to hear from you. Eddie's with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, mate. I was wanting to talk about this report about the hospital.
Yes.
And that Manx Care says it'll take 3 years for them to get it sorted. I think Manx Care should be gone. When you've got 75 doctors and 1% says they've got faith in Manx Care, there's something radically wrong somewhere.
They say, Manx Care said it was only 72 doctors replied to it, and they employ a lot more people than that.
72 doctors telling you that they've got no faith in them whatsoever, I think is a scary
Now, they created Manx Care, Eddie, to separate the politicians from the people who run the health service because they thought that was the right thing to do. So you don't think it's worked out?
I don't think so, because they're not responsible to anybody. At least when we had a health minister, if he did a bad job, at the end of the thing, we could vote him out. These people are getting money to run our hospital, and basically your doctors are telling you they're not doing it properly. And RMHK should be up in the air about this. For a report to come out like that is absolutely scary.
So, whatever's going to happen, do you think 3 years is too long then?
It's way too long. The way it's going on up there at the hospital now, if you need an intensive care bed, you've got to be lucky that there might be a bed available. Because if there isn't, you've got no chance.
Whatever happens, Eddie, this is going to cost us money. And by us, I mean you and me, taxpayers. It's going to cost us money.
It's got to cost us money. But let's face it, surely the health of the people should come first before anything else.
Well, that's government's first job, Eddie, is to take care of people.
Think so. Yeah, you would think so. But here they were talking about things that aren't going to bother us for another 20 years. And that was more important. I just can't understand why they aren't looking at things basically now, here and now. I mean, they turn around and say they want to reduce the fares somehow or other. So why are we charging? The steam packet is belonging to the government. So why is the government department charging them landing fees here on the island? If you reduce that landing fee, take that landing fee away, at least it's going to reduce 30, 40 quid off the fare.
Okay. All right.
It's such a simple thing. You're charging yourself.
All right, Eddie. I appreciate your call. Thanks for being with us today.
All the best, mate.
All right, cheers now. And David's on now. Hi, David.
Hi, Danny. Just listening to the other channel, listening to the Parliament there regarding the future of green energy and where we go, and listen to the Chief Minister. Now, I'll give you a scenario here, and it's my scenario. 6 or 7 people commented. So in a half an hour period, then the decision was to vote their strategy through, except for one member of the Keys. And I don't know who it would be. It was a tougher man's voice. Hopefully your reporters will get onto that and find out, did he not want that? Did he not? Was it going the wrong way? The other thing too, the Chief Minister said that trying to get towards 20 megawatts of green energy into the system to help out.
Yeah.
And nobody questioned him. What have we actually done? What have we put up? Have we put one panel up The only panels I think they've put up is for the TT races to electrify the panels which are around the course.
Yeah.
And them sort of things. There's a couple on the mountain as well, on one of the huts to give it a bit of power. But what have they actually done which you can tick a box on to say, we're going down the road of nuclear, it's going to be electricity for the nation, we're going to need another cable coming in from somewhere. There was none of that debate at all. There was no cut and thrust. And to me, I don't know what we're going to say to the younger people in the future when I see that other people are trying to, some companies are trying to as well, put PV panels up. There's nobody going down the road, I think, of a wind turbine. That's probably out.
Well, at the moment, there's still that planning application from Peel Group who want to stick that enormous solar farm up Billown. They say that's ready to go. I mean, if they get the planning go-ahead, I think it's September, Peel Group could have that solar farm ready.
And going out to yesterday where we had the enterprise department, I think they may be on another planet, to tell you the truth, because I didn't see any encouragement to say, what are they doing to support applications like you just mentioned, and the applications that are stuck in the system for a hearing for people to have it in September. Come on, we need the government to stop pushing these people out, and the members in the department need to say, look, we need to achieve something before the end of the year, before they actually go on holiday.
You see, David, I think the government's pushing an open door. I think if the government spoke to the public and just said, "Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do X, Y, and Z," I think people would appreciate it. Let's do something rather than just talk.
Well, I keep saying all those schools are going to be empty in another month, aren't they? So between then and back in September there, can you imagine how much electricity we'd be charging thrown back on the grid to help the MEA out?
Okay. All right, David, thanks for calling.
Ta-da.
Good to hear from you. A note in just regarding this sex education thing. Phase 1 was investigating whether or not there was a drag queen giving a guest lecture. The claims were found to be inaccurate. And Phase 2 is looking at the broader sex education curriculum and teaching methods. We've been told that children were also being spoken to in the school by investigators. There was also that special inbox set up for parents to communicate their thoughts to investigate as well. Julie Edge, however, believes the inbox has now closed. Talking of schools, I want to say congratulations to Sonia Taylor, who's the new head at Ramsey Grammar School from September. Sonia is from Stoke-on-Trent, a very experienced school leader, and she takes over from Sarah Findletter, who's been there for 2 years. Ramsey Grammar School's got over 1,000 pupils enrolled in the current academic year, so we say congratulations to Sonia Taylor from September, the new head at RGS.
Ramsey Garden Centre opens 7 days a week for roses, shrubs, trees, perennials and an array of pond plants. Or if it's fire pits or solar lights, there's never been a better time to visit Ramsey Garden Centre.
Island Hearing Limited, your local hearing care specialist since 2009 with branches in Port Erin and Ramsey. We provide the very latest hearing aid technology available, which you can try at home, with excellent aftercare and a wax removal service available using microsuction. Give us a ring on 830 722 or visit Island Hearing at One Station Road, Port Erin. We're happy to help. Island Hearing, always listening.
The race is on to help members of our elderly community, and you can help win it. The KPMG Promenade Relay takes place along Douglas Seafront on Friday 7th July, with 100% of entry fees and sponsorship going to Live at Home, supporting elderly islanders to live happily at home for as long as possible. Get your relay team of 2 to 4 people together to tackle the 10k course, or go it solo over 5k. Entries close 5th July. Visit home.kpmg/CDS for details and registration. The KPMG Promenade Relay is supported by your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
That's to by 9 minutes before 1. Why are they hiding, says David? Why has no parent involved been interviewed yet in the RSC investigation? I think it's a sham. Why has the Department of Education refused a Freedom of Information request from a parent asking to provide a copy of the RSE teaching materials that have been used in schools since September 22? So the department's refused an FOI from a parent, says David. What are they hiding, and why can't parents see the materials that their children have been taught? Thank you. Mark's on now. Hi, Mark.
Yeah, hi, Andy. I just wanted to... one of your previous callers mentioned ESG and his concerns over that. And I was at an interesting it was a panel of experts a couple of weeks ago. There was a government member there who was talking about the transition. There was a sort of what I would call a professional services talking about the growing complexity that companies are going to be facing with ESG going forward.
Yeah.
And there was also a financier, a sort of an investment guy, who was talking about how investments are, being encouraged into what he would call positive ESG sectors. And what rather than sort of, and everyone was nodding, most of the audience were nodding and sort of going along with it, and it scared the living daylights out of me. And for one reason, the government member said, I can't remember the exact number. Is it 35 million, the environmental fund? I can't remember the exact number. Maybe you know, Andy, I don't know.
It changes, and they haven't spent it yet.
Well, yeah. Well, she said I think there was 25 was allocated, and there's the remainder to be. There's a few more million to be allocated. But I just thought let's just say 35 million's been allocated. And I thought, well, okay, that's who's going to pay for that? And then you work out the average. The working population of the Isle of Man is what, 35,000? I'm trying to make round numbers here. I don't know what the working... Say 35,000. I just Googled it before.
Okay, yeah.
So that's 1,000... That's going to cost working taxpayers in the Isle of Man £1,000 each to fund the government initiative. And the government are just throwing these figures around like, 30... Very proud of it. I mean, yes, I get the fact that there is, we've got to do something, but it comes down to the fact who's going to pay for this. And I raised this question to the panel, and there was a consensus across the panel that yes, it is worrying about who's going to pay for this, because this 35 million is just a start, right? And I made the point that yes, most of the panel could probably afford to put solar panels on their roofs, etc. But the normal man, and I'm going to say sort of a normal man in the street, how the hell are they going to pay to actually make themselves, their houses compliant going forward? And it'll be the taxpayers of the Isle of Man that will be funding that. And, that means how is it going to happen? It was quite a scary thought, because there was sort of there was a consensus across the panel. This is the way forward. But when you ask who's going to pay for it, everyone sort of just looks at each other. And I don't think the government sort of figured that out yet. And I just feel like we're going to be drowning in sort of red tape and bureaucracy going forward. And, the Isle of Man's always, I think, has been agile in being able to move forward, but they just don't seem to be taking a step back and thinking, is this the right forward?
So what do you think?
Anyway,
I mean, when you say it bothers you, it scares you, in particular, why?
The financial side of it, because I just don't think the Isle of Man can afford it, Andy. I mean, you look about the way they're dipping into the government reserves to pay for the pension. You look about the nonsense of the last budget, where I think they allocated, was it 2.5% inflation for the government workers, whereas most employers are working on 7 to 10% annual inflation. I just don't know where the money's come from, and I don't see what the next big thing is on the Isle of Man.
Let me tell you now. I'll tell you where the money's coming from, and you know the answer.
Well, I would like to think that, Andy.
It's coming from the taxpayer.
It is coming from the taxpayer, exactly. And and the knock-on effect that is, well, okay, how can they sustain that? Which would probably mean pushing up the taxes, which I think, my view on the keys at the moment, are more left of centre than I'm right of centre, right? That's where I am. But I think the current Tynwald is very much left of centre. And I think it seems inevitable to me that they're going to be looking to push the taxes up in some shape or form to fund this. And what does that mean? That means businesses leaving the Isle of Man, because they will. The Isle of Man became we're not classified as a tax haven anymore, we're a low tax jurisdiction, but most businesses are located here because of tax reasons. And if they start putting up the taxes, businesses will leave, and then the Isle of Man will sort of change its directory. I find it very worrying. I mean, I live over here. I'm committed to be. I've moved back here. I lived most of my working life away. I've moved back here because I'm a Manxman. And I just find the current trajectory very, very worrying, and just how we're going to afford all this. You know, healthcare. My parents' generation getting older. Obviously, they're going to, rightly so, they're going to be more of the costs from the hospitals and looking after them. It's inevitable, and we have to look after them. But there's more cost, more pressure, and I just think the current model the government have, I just don't think it's sustainable.
Okay, all right, Mark. I appreciate that, and thanks for calling today. It's a depressing note to finish on, but thanks for your candour. I agree with Tony. Says this WhatsApper, the MHK should seek advice from experts. On Sunday, Phil Gaughan had John Webster on his programme. It's people like John whose advice they should be taking. So what are they trying to agree on? Well, you tell me. We're open line tomorrow and Thursday. On Friday, a very special show about assisted dying. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today.
WINT